What is up, everybody? It is Alex from Heavy New York calling from Zoom again, and this time we are here with Kampfar. We are here with Ole and Dolk. Thank you so much for being here. It's great to have you here.
Oh, it's a pleasure.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
really.
it's so awesome to have you guys here. This new album that you are releasing very soon, Till Clever's Tacht, is absolutely amazing. Was the intention of this to just make a direct continuation off of Ophidian's Manifest, or was this like a new beginning in the Campfire adventure?
Yeah. You can start, Ola.
Yeah, yeah. I think this was definitely a new thing for us. We first of all, this album wasn't planned at all because it came out of the pandemic. Basically, we were supposed to go on tour, and then everything shut down. And yeah, eventually we figured out that we just wanted to make music again and yeah, do something creative. And after a while, it turned out to be an album. And I think we started really fresh. Actually, we talked about it when we started making these songs that we like before we maybe made some kind of continuation between the albums, but this time, at least like thematically and stuff like that, we had to just make a break from Ophidian's Manifest because that album was so dark and personal for all of us, and then maybe especially me and Dolk. So there was no further way we could go there. Basically, we couldn't go any darker, in a way.
Yeah.
So we had to do something else.
Yeah.
We
Yeah,
can, yeah.
And it was also like you said, Ola, that the pandemic hit us, and we were supposed to go on tour actually, and we had all the backline sort of in the air actually, on the way to Krakow when the whole Europe shut down actually. So what we actually did was like we went up to Hemsedal again, where we had been. Yeah, especially me, I have the roots there since I was 6 years old, but it has become more and more important to come far to be there. So we just wanted to go up there to do something else, not exactly to create music either, but I mean, the whole thing turned out that way. I know we're musicians, so that's maybe natural to go in that direction when we're up there. But all of a sudden, we had so much things and ideas going on, and it was like Ola said, it was impossible to continue the road that we made with Ophidian's Manifest because it was so dark and so personal. So the only thing that we had to do now was to sort of rising up again from the ashes actually, because this was Ophidian's Manifest was really at the rock bottom of my life, to be honest. So the only way that we could do anything with the music now was to go to find some strength again and to maybe rise like the bird phoenix somehow, from the ashes. And that's what I think we have done with this album. But I mean, this album is also very close connected to the area itself. It's also very close connected to the main forces that we are surrounded with up there.
Mm-hmm. Well, when it comes, because I know that Ophidian's Manifest was a very personal and very dark album, but it almost seems like every album, like when you compare the entire Kampfar catalog from when you look at Mare to Profane or something like that, and going all the way back to even the debut of Mellum, like does it almost feel like, does a concept, whether it would be a personal or an external sort of subject matter, help maybe dictate your hands with regards to how the music will sound in a way, especially since this new album was kind of like born so spontaneously based on circumstance?
So we have had some of these questions, some similar questions in this round of interviews that we've had, and some of the interviews have commented on that. That for them, this new album is maybe even darker than Ophidian's Manifest, and for us that's a bit strange to hear because we know the whole story from where the albums came from, and how much personal stuff that is in there. And in a way, you can say because this new album and these stories are really sort of dark stories from sort of that, inspired by that area in Hemsedal and the folkloric stories that were there. And it's really dark. It's really sort of terrifying stories and stuff like that. But I guess for us it becomes a little bit different because it's not connected directly to something personal. Well, it's connected in the way that where these places are and stuff like that. But Ophidion's Manifest was a much more internal struggle, if you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but you're absolutely right. I mean, it's the state of where you are in life actually that kind of creates the sound of the music too. I totally agree. You know, because when Kampfar started back in the early '90s. I had ideas for Kampfar for so many years, but it didn't happen because I was playing in an old band called Mock, you know. So, I mean, when Mock finally split it up, I had everything lined up for Kampfar, and I know exactly where to go, you know. So in that sense, you can say that maybe the 10 first years of Kampfar history was more like a planned lineup thing, and then after, especially after Mara, I think thing became differently because it's like Ole said, we had done a lot of promotion now because of this album, so we done a lot of interviews, and we always come into this topic because I think that in the end, I think that we almost been doing Kampfar for 30 years now, and I think it would have been impossible for Kampfar to even be a band if we just did the same story over and over again, or did like we follow a 30-year plan or something. It's impossible. I mean, the last 15 years at least has been more to push ourselves as individuals and as musicians, as also push the sort of limit of the whole term Norwegian black metal, in my opinion.
Well, being that both of you have been involved in so many projects, you know, Dolk, you being involved with Mock as well as Gruesome, which happy 20 years to the Pure Brutality demo. I know that that's 20 years this year. But Ollie, I know that you've also played with Amancer and so many other bands as well. Does that maybe help influence or maybe bring some new elements into what Kampfar is all about? Or do you try to maybe maintain a consistent essence of darkness through your catalog?
Yeah, Dolk, did I bring some new influences?
That's
because I joined the band
in 2011.
11 years ago.
Yeah, Mare, I think, was your first album, right?
That's been I joined slightly after actually, but that's also the only change that has been. I mean, Jon and Ask also came into the band at some point, so that was, but we have had this very sort of steady thing going all the time, and I think that's a huge positive because we have time to evolve from album to album. Mm-hmm. We can actually, you know, sit down and talk things through when we start a new project, almost when we start making a new album, because there is no people going in and out of the band all the time, like in other bands.
Mm-hmm. No, it's a steady lineup for sure. It has been like that, but that's also yeah. But to be honest, to go back to your question is if this previous bands or something, or our musician lives brings something differently into Kampfar, for sure. But I mean, it's not that we think about it. I mean, the only thing that I can say is like I can still remember the day Thomas ended the cooperation with me, you know, because we've been working for 17 years or something together. And I didn't see a future back then with Kampfar, to be honest. But the only thing I can say is like, because we know a lot of people, of course, in this business after all these years, and we got to hear about Ole from different places, and we got in touch with Ole, and he was supposed to come for a showcase or rehearsal or whatever, call it whatever. And the only thing I remember from that year is like this new guy young guy in our rehearsal room, and we were agreed upon doing 6 songs or something that he had rehearsed, you know. And the only thing I can remember is that he played he played the shit out of us, you know, because we couldn't follow him. And that was a new experience for me, to bring a new guy into the band that played the ass of the rest of us, you know. So we had to step up in a way, and I think that actually helped the whole kind of atmosphere and the focus in the band, actually, to get new inspiration, to get new musicians into the band that was actually better than you.
And when it comes to the emotional elements that's demonstrated on a Kampfar album, you know, with the darkness that's demonstrated in there, is it better if everybody in the band is feeling the exact same way emotionally in order to make the album sound consistent? Or could maybe your different experiences and your different emotions help bring like some contrast and new tricks and twists to the album?
So I don't think that everybody needs to. I mean, everybody has different feelings and stuff like that. But the thing is that what we always make sure is that everybody is on the same page. That everybody sort of, because when we start making music, I don't know if other bands are like this, but when we actually start making new music, start making an album, we don't start with making some riffs and melodies and stuff like that. We start just by talking through what we want, how we want it, like on a more abstract level, how we want it to feel, how we want it to, impact people. And in that process, we all sort of get on the same line, you know, so that when we know that we found something that hits the spot, we just know it, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but of course it's the 4 different personalities that gets through the whole thing here. I mean, it's that makes it very interesting, actually, because we are 4 individuals, and we are 4 individuals that are really, we are really into the how the outcome is, you know, because like if there's always a lot of different opinions, but we have it's like we talked about earlier, Ole, that if some people were a fly on the wall or something up in the cabin up in the north with us, they would probably think that it was a group of maniacs or something, because like we can argue so much, but it's still with a deep respect, you know. And in the end, that's the balance that creates everything.
Of course. And when it comes to like making music about your own personal trials and tribulations, obviously it's very cathartic, you know, to create art about personal struggles and whatnot. But does it also maybe make it deteriorating when the concept of, you know, agony and the macabre is sort of like fueling your artistic existence in a way? Does that almost make the artistic process just as torturous as it could be cathartic?
Well, I think, especially with Ophidion's Manifest, I think it was almost like therapy, especially for me, and I think also for Dolk. But for me, it was taking some things that were really hard and placing them somewhere, placing them in the music. That's actually a fantastic thing that you can do with music, I think, because you don't have to. Yeah, music can express some things that you cannot express with words.
Definitely.
But on an artistic level, I think that You know, I could actually live in that bubble year after year after year after year, actually, just create stuff. I'm not in need to be the artist on stage. I have never been. You know, this is for me. It's always been about creating. It's always been what I love the most about being in Kampfar is actually when we're not playing live and we just go the four of us and don't care about the rest of the world, sort of. So in that sense, that is not that is not a sacrifice for me to be an artist to create art. That's not a sacrifice. The sacrifice for me is actually to be going on tours and stuff, especially up front when you go on tour. I never want to do that, but in the end, when I'm starting to do a tour, it's you feel you kind of alive again as an artist. That's a really strange feeling. But I mean, as an artist, to create music and art and living in that bubble, I could have done that forever, to be honest. And that is not a sacrifice.
Definitely. And also, what I wanted to ask too is, and I've asked every musician in the black metal realm this. Some of them love this question, some of them hate this question, but I am genuinely curious that when everybody in black metal goes by an alias, as you know, Kampfar has done with being. I know Ole is your first name, but Attila is also
Yep.
Mayhem singer's first name, and it almost has a different identity. And you know, going by Dolk, and as we've seen with all sorts of uh, does it almost feel like that within your music and on the stage even that you portray an identity outside of who you personally are, or do you feel that Dolk or is almost or whatever alias you go by is almost like a direct extension of who you personally are?
Yeah, it's a kind of two edges sword, that question, actually, because in one way you're absolutely right. In one way, you go into this kind of persona on stage and live with Dolk, you know. But that is also the person that maybe the most in the music business knows in a way. Still, I wouldn't say that I'm a complete different guy when it's not into that Dolk persona. I think it has become, like I said earlier, especially when you have done it for so many years. I think maybe especially for the last 10 years or so, it's a way of just it's a way of life, and it's not like you entering into a different zone or something anymore. It used to be like that, I would say. Maybe it was more important back in the days to kind of be in a specific way all the time. You know, that you have to think about the character or whatever when it comes to Dolk. Then you have to think about what he would have done with his personal life. Maybe now it's more blending. I actually don't think about it anymore. But of course, when you go on stage, something happens for sure. I cannot explain it. Mm.
Is there like a similar energy that you channel into your live presence as you do when you're songwriting? Is there anything that kind of like brings that energy and that art together, or are they almost two completely separate entities and two different experiences?
No, definitely not. I mean, it's sort of the thing that uh, you can relate to in both your regular life and with music. But of course, it's a little more dark on the edge maybe when it comes to creating music. Then I mean, I'm almost 50 years old now. I'm not going around being in solitude or darkness all the time. And I mean, but I mean, in one way or another, the music is coming from somewhere, and it's coming from the person that you actually are in life, also, for sure. But I mean, I had this kind of, I think I have to go way back because if, to start when I was a kid, because like when I was a small kid, I have this, especially in Norway, you have a lot of this folkloric roots and tales and stuff. And I had this grandmother that was really an interesting woman, and she had all these superstitious thoughts and ideas and stories about the old times. And she kind of got I kind of got into that very early in my life. When I was 6 years old already, I knew a lot of these Nordic stories that maybe the common Norwegian didn't know about because of her. So I mean, for me, it has been a very natural development, and it also has been a very maybe closer connections to the roots, maybe for me as a person. So I bring that with me still. I think, you know.
Mhm. In order to get that inspiration to create that impulse, that energy, that real again that inspiration, do you both kind of like need to put yourself in a specific place in order to cultivate that ideas, and almost like you have a usual source of that energy, or does the inspiration just strike when you least expect it?
Yeah, I mean, we have this cabin that a lot of people already know about in Norway, which is far out into the wilderness. And I mean, that place is just so important for us when it comes to creating stuff. I mean, of course, we do some work separately as well in our own places and stuff like that. But that place up there in Hemsedal, that's sort of where the magic happens. And I think this time especially. And it was also, yeah, it's so weird because you go there to go into solitude, you know, to get away from everything. But this time during the pandemic, there was also this strange thing that this was the only place where we actually met people, because we met each other, you know, just the four of us. We went from one sort of solitude with our families to the solitude together up there. It was really weird, but it's a very great place to create. I mean, definitely.
Yeah, it almost seems
Yeah,
like yeah.
for sure, it connects you in a way. It's that's a almost an impossible question to answer. But why do we go there all the time? And I mean, something is happening because there are less distractions. You feel the energy that are up there in a special way, and it helps us to get to the goal in a way.
100%. And like it almost seems like with this new album, from the formation of it till lovers tacht, it almost seems like this is the most ironic Kampfar album, because like even though isolation and solitude has been a fuel for your creativity, it almost seems like the solitude was just there, and it seemed like everybody was forced into solitude, and you guys were actually experiencing the least of that solitude for one time, even though you were in the same place.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's true. It's weird, but also this place, because it's placed where it is, and I mean, we released this video for one of the songs for Urkraft, where we go out into the wilderness, and we had this guy with a drone filming us and stuff like that, and people are asking us, like, how did we find this place? I mean, did we have a location scout or something like that? But it's not. We just walked out the door and into the wilderness, basically, and that's the kind of place it is, you know. And going back to like all these dark stories that we talked about, you know, from this area, all these tales, stuff that people believed in and saw in the nature, or things that were happening, you can sort of feel it when you're there, you know. Can be a blizzard outside when we're there in the winter, and in the summer it can just be blooming with all kinds of plants and stuff, and there are animals walking around all the time, and yeah, it makes you think differently, you know.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
And you take, I'd imagine too, like inspiration comes because you address concepts externally, and then you have your internal experiences that you incorporate. But you're also touring, and you see other aspects of the world and interact with different cultures and stuff. It almost seems like the world is going to influence you whether you realize it or not, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, it's and that sums it up actually, because this album is also like that. Because this album is, like you said, it's maybe the most ironic one, but I mean, it's the album that connects this place to the world actually, because a lot of these stories is like when Norway was opening up to the rest of the world, and especially Europe, and people came into Norway abroad with all these influences from Rome and whatever. They came into this valley because they had to pass this valley. This is one of the main roads still, where if you have to go to the east coast or the west coast of Norway, you have to go through this valley. So there's a lot of influences from the world that got into this valley, and is also very connected to this album, just like we are now as musicians traveling around the world, actually doing shows in Paris, Rome, whatever big cities, and we come back again and go up in the solitude. And I mean, it's sort of an endless circle that connects us
Definitely.
and the album.
And you led me perfectly into the final question, actually, because do you think that this music, and this doesn't even have to be applied to Kampfar, but it could apply to any project you've been involved with, do you think that the meaning and the concept can evolve over time as you evolve as an artist, or do you prefer if every album that you create is more or less just a snapshot of who you are at that particular time?
Yeah, that's a hard question. Because I think actually you're right in both. But I mean, for me, it's more like a snapshot from where we are right now, to be honest. But in a way or another, there's always a circle that connects it. Well, I mean, when we do create new stuff now, it's definitely not like we did with the debut album. But in one way or another, it also connects to it. So it's quite hard to answer that.
Yeah. But
we do always, when we make something new, we try, we push the borders. We tear down all the rules and the walls and everything that we have set up before. But somehow we will always have this sort of identity, Kampfar DNA, whatever you want to call it, which brings it back together. But I also agree with Dolk here that every album is really a snapshot of where we are at that time, I think.
Yeah,
definitely. Like, and Mare is always going to be the album that, especially since that was 10 years old last year, that's the first album I think of Ole, because that was like your debut album cycle with the band. And then, I mean, Dolk, I mean, just because of your prolific catalog, I mean, again, going back to the Gruesome EP or Intumno or any of those bands, it almost seems like we could all really get to know our artists through the music that they create, whether it is an external concept or an internal one.
Yeah, for sure. But I mean, it all happens for a reason in my head, And I mean, if it wasn't for Gruesome, I wouldn't have done Kampfar now, maybe, because I was out of it and I didn't want to continue with music. And then something got me hooked again, and all of a sudden, you were back on track with Kampfar. So it all connects in a way, for sure.
Yeah. Definitely. Well, I want to thank you guys so much for your time today and for such an awesome conversation. It's so great to have you guys here. Everybody, we are here with Kampfar. Be sure to check out their brand new album, To Lovers Tacht, coming out very soon. We will see you next time on Heavy New York.